And to other stories now, as part of efforts to strengthen user safety measures, the federal government has closed down more than 13 million social media accounts for offensive content and violations of the Code of Practice. This development was announced in a joint Code of Practice by the Nigerian Communications Commission, the National Information Technology Development Agency, and the National Broadcasting Commission. And Director of Corporate Communications and Media Relations of NITDA, Hadiza Amaru, mentioned that more than 420,000 contents were removed and re-uploaded following appeals by users. She explained that the submission of these reports marks a significant step towards fostering a safer and responsible digital environment for Nigerian users. NITDA also emphasized that building a safer digital space requires sustained collaboration and engagement among all key players. Now, for more on this development, Managing Director, Adio Strategy and Communication, Ayodele Adio, joins me on the news this hour. Good to have you join us, Mr. Adio.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
So for those who are wondering what all of this means, the removal and suspension, rather, of 13 million social media accounts, just explain to us what this means and then what would constitute offensive content.
Well, to be honest, I'm not sure that they have made the guidelines public as to what, their context for removing or shutting down social media accounts are. But I could take a wild guess and argue that, they want to tackle obscene content. They want to take out contents that sort of promote pornography. They want to take down contents that promote violence and extremism. To that extent, it would be some sort of house cleaning to ensure that the social media space does not become a tool for societal destabilization, and it adheres to its, primary objective of bringing people together, of promoting commerce, and perhaps, scaling talent across the globe. So I would argue that that perhaps would be the vantage point from which this policy is being looked at. But I must add that, the Commission hasn't been clear as to its guidelines, neither has it engaged the public as to what its modus operandi is and what it specifically defines as obscene content and the process it is taking to bring down social media accounts, which I think it's very imperative to inspire confidence in the public.
That's why I really want to come in here because, if you're a right-thinking person, you know the difference, you know what's right and what's not right. But just not knowing that these guidelines even exist in the first place, we have stopped at the point of social media regulation. That's where we are. And people know that we do not have that bill yet. But just knowing now that there is a guideline and removing accounts before that understanding of these guidelines, what does that mean? Shouldn't they have been at least informed before the removal?
Oh, yes, especially because it's the government doing it. So, and that raises a very red flag. If the government is going to be taking down social media accounts without a clear engagement with the public as to what these guidelines or what these standards are, it raises very serious concerns because obviously you want to be sure that the accounts of critics are not being taken down. You want to be sure that opposition voices, for instance, are not being shut out of social media. So I think this engagement is critical so that there's a level playing field and there's an understanding of the specifics upon which the government seems to be fighting against. And like I said earlier on, I think every Nigerian will be in support of the government fighting extremism, will be in support of fighting language that promotes violence, language that promotes division, ethnic or religious, and perhaps will be vehemently against, pornographic content that is quite obscene, for the public, especially, for younger people to view. So I would argue that that should form some sort of a guiding compass upon which this regulation should take effect. But unfortunately, like we have both alluded to, there isn't a clear guideline as to what obtains or what makes up an obscene content or what the government is exactly doing to regulate this space.
And just for that reason, especially because of what you said about ensuring that this is not now used to silence dissent, voices of dissent, how then can government ensure transparency in the process, especially with this particular 30 million accounts that have now been shut down?
I have always argued about the best way to regulate the social media is to have some sort of an ombudsman. And when I say an ombudsman, it doesn't have to be an individual. It can be an institution that comprises of a committee between those in government, those in civil society organizations, those in the media organization, and of course, those that represent many of these social media companies to come together and have some sort of a committee to regulate the content on social media. And that regulation has to be on specifics. And for me, particularly, I would argue that those specifics should involve content that promotes violence, content that promotes extremism, especially radical extremism, and of course, content that frowns against ethnic and religious division, because we have seen how this snowballs, into statewide crisis and breakdown. A case in point, is Rohingya, where a Facebook campaign led to the killing of millions of people and unfettered violence against the minority in that country. So I would argue that, such kinds of regulation that involves every stakeholder and not primarily resident with the government will be the best approach to tackle this. Typically, Democrats or progressives are usually wary about government completely regulating communications or completely regulating social media. And so that for me would not be a right approach. I would like a big tent approach that carries everyone along and it's clear about its objective and what it seeks to regulate.
Absolutely. And we're hoping that government will take that step and provide more details on this particular move that it has made. Thank you so much for your time. Managing Director, Adio Strategy and Communications, Ayodele Adio. Always a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you for having me.